I'm going to be very brief and hopefully helpful. I don't want to be unhelpful. I want to be helpful. And Kennedy, thank you for that introduction. Thanks for your incredible leadership. And it's everydayhero.com, correct? Yes. So she's thinking about how to change behavior in her school and among her peers, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, because as I work with cities, the cities are thinking about newly, because before they hadn't really addressed this, as I was talking with the case colleagues over, where are my case colleagues? Maybe they're spread out. I was meeting with them at lunch. How do we change behavior? How do we get people to go green in their lives? And how do we make it easy, accessible, and affordable for them to do so? So I grew up just about an hour south of here. I grew up in a small little town called Kidron. Has anyone ever heard of it? Small little Amish Mennonite community. My father was a Mennonite preacher. Both grandfathers were Mennonite preachers. The first Amish bishop in the US was my 6th great-grandfather. So I grew up steeped in that community. I love working with Cleveland. I think Cleveland has such an incredible story around how to engage communities. My cities around the world are not engaging communities at the pace and at the thoroughness and at the comprehensive, complex approach you have here, with partners involved all along the way, here today, but throughout the days. The city of Cleveland has involved its community pretty comprehensively and in ways that surpass so many of my cities. So you have an incredible story to tell. I'm going to go through a few behavioral science approaches, principles, whatever you want to call them, pedagogies, to think about how we engage communities in our work. And I'm going to start with a story about how I changed behavior. So my dad, who was a Mennonite preacher in Kidron, Ohio, died when I was 9. I was 8 when he had a stroke, and he lost his ability to speak and write. And I have vivid memories of my 8-year-old self sitting beside him on his bed, teaching him how to write my name. I even remember what my name looked like as he tried to scribble it in this kind of language as he wrote Mike. So here's an 8-year-old teaching his dad how to write his name and how to say his name. He actually could sing, because that was the other side of his brain that wasn't impacted, so he would sing to us because that's how he would communicate. After he died a year later, my life changed completely. And when I was in my early 20s, I had 2 heart surgeries here at Cleveland Clinic. My dad died of heart failure, and I, thankfully, because of the miracle of modern medicine, actually Cleveland Clinic couldn't fix me, so they sent me to Oklahoma City, where the guy who invented the procedure works, and he fixed me in 4 hours, and I'm healthy, and he knocked out the electrical wires that shouldn't be in my heart, and I'm healthy. That changed my life. Well, yeah, thanks to Oklahoma and Cleveland Clinic. But we can't create these life-changing moments for people. When Bill Clinton had a heart attack, he went vegan because he realized he couldn't eat meat anymore. So how do we create behavior change without creating near-death experiences for people who want to do the right thing, but how do we get them out of their status quo? And I'm going to go through a few things. Since this year is the year of the people, let's focus on people. I'm going to look at 12 principles very quickly that aren't mine. If you go to ideas42, the number 42.org, you'll find these. So I've cribbed them from there. So again, they're not my principles, but I'm going to apply our climate work, our sustainability work to them. Choice overload. So we want our communities to transition and transform everything they're doing, from what they're eating, to what they're wearing, to what they're riding, to what they're heating with, to what they're powering, to what they're lighting. So that's a lot. And we often offer a lot. Matt said this morning, Chief Gray said this morning, 107 actions. That's a lot of choice overload. So how do we make it simple for them? And one of my cities, New York City, they're in the Carbon Neutral Cities Alliance. If you look at their Bring It New York City campaign, bringit.nyc, they make it very simple. One choice. Up at the top is the problem, click. Right beside it, the solution, click. And then you pledge to bring a reusable, bring it. That's it. They didn't decide to populate this page with all the things you can do to go green. It was one ask. And this is really important in our work. When we engage communities, we have a lot to do, and we have a lot to do quickly in 10 years to turn the ship around and have emissions by 2030 Give them one option, one action first, baby steps, foot in the door. Maybe then they consider another one. If they did it successfully, they're like, yes, I like this, I want to do more of it, what else can I do? Versus, hey team, we need to do 107 right now. No, choice overload. Cognitive depletion. So I'm going to interpret this slightly differently in that if I'm working 2 jobs and I've got a couple kids, and by the time I come home, I see a flyer from you saying, hey, come help local initiative X, Y, or Z. I am depleted from the day. Energetically, I don't have time, I don't have emotional energy, and I know the science is bad, and maybe I'm aware, tracking with climate data, and it's just too much. I'm depleted, I can't engage. How do we give people a nourishing environment so that they are attracted to that nourishment? And I just want to give one example from Yokohama. Yokohama, one of my cities, partnered with Starbucks to create these cafes where no electricity was used, only candles. They wanted to bring people together in community, to eat together, to drink together, and to talk about how life can be enjoyable in a low energy style with no lights and just candles. Perhaps it was a little theatric, but thinking about how we feed the community, especially in food deserts, so that they're nourished as well in the process. Another one, hassle factors. We have to make it easy for people to switch. A lot of this work isn't always easy. Obviously, the city is thinking about that. The community partners here in this room are thinking about that. How do we make it easy for people to switch? One example from Helsinki, one of our member cities, Helsinki, Finland. You see these on the sidewalks in Helsinki, and I love them. They're so great. If you have any kind of trash, recycling, you name it, you find the right receptacle, you open up this vacuum-sealed door, so it's like, and you throw it in there, and then it travels at like 60 kilometers an hour back to a central basin, and they collect it and sort it, and that's how they recycle it, and that's how they deal with trash. They make it super easy for Helsinki residents, for Finnish people, to do what's right. Another one, identity. How do we appeal to the myriad identities that are coming into a room, and thinking about the different identities of our community and making sure we're attending to those identities. One example that is something that one of our cities, Vancouver, they're a member city of the Carbon Neutral Cities Alliance, they've capitalized on city pride and city identity. Obviously, you did that this summer around your river, and it got incredible national attention. How do we capitalize on this? Vancouver is trying to position itself as the greenest city. Already talked about today was competition, the benefits of positive competition, constructive competition. So what's the right identity here in Cleveland, building on that? Obviously, the river is one, but there are myriad identities that we need to appeal to. Limited attention, this is huge. People have limited attention, they're distracted with their phones. How are you gonna get their attention? This is San Francisco's website. So sfrecycles.org doesn't fill this whole page with information. I go to way too many city websites, and there's way too much text. And if I have limited attention, I'm scrolling quickly, maybe I'm on my phone, I've got a call, scrolling quickly on my iPad, whatever, scroll. This gets rid of the noise and says, we want you to click here. Truly, if you go to sfrecycles.org, you'll see this. That's all there is. A lot of white space, a lot of negative space to draw your eyes to what the action is that we want you to take. So think about that as you design any outreach materials, really mindful of limited attention in our community. Loss aversion. You are more inclined to track with the left column than you are with the right. You're more inclined psychologically in terms of behavioral science, behavioral economics, to avert loss, even if the other option is pleasure from gain. You are keen to avert loss, so how do we work within that behavioral science? This is Oslo, one of our city members as well, trying to build on their climate website affection for that which we want to protect. You've done this around your river. How do you build attachment to the stuff you want to protect so that people want to avert or avoid the loss of it? So it's a little bit of a 1-2, like how do we create love for the parks, 10-minute walk, et cetera, so that then people want to protect that which we're connecting them to. Another one, primacy bias. The yellow bird, what you present first, people tend to track towards. So if you have a list of 10, I hope that number 1 on that list of 10 is what you want first, because that's the action people will take. So in thinking about designing any kind of community outreach, any kind of website, any kind of materials, people have a tendency to be biased towards that which you prioritize, so your first item on the list, or what you even use in terms of coloring on a page, how you draw the attention to it, the mind to it, they're gonna choose. Stockholm, one of our city members, have done this. If you go to Stockholm's main homepage, they are prioritizing their green status. Now, it's a little busy, it's a little busier than I would want, but if you look down here, it's the first European green capital in 2010. They're saying this is important to us. This is part of our identity, and we're gonna prioritize it on our city homepage so that you see it. Procrastination. Okay, there's applause for that one, good, so we'll take note of that. Procrastination, when you think about behavioral change and behavioral science, we all think, oh, I'll get to it. This is really important for climate work because what do? We have 2030 goals, we have 2040 goals, and we have 2050 goals, which is really problematic if you're mindful of people's proclivity to procrastinate, which is, oh, we'll get to it. I even hate the term, there are a lot of terms I hate as a communicator. One term I hate is existential threat. People use it all the time. Now it's like ubiquitous. CNN uses it. Existential threat, existential threat, no, stop. Like no one hears existential threat and be like, oh my, I'm gonna die. No, but that's what they're trying to say. It's a threat to our existence. So I get it definitionally, but please don't use it. So in thinking about 2030 goals, 2040 goals, 2050 goals, people are thinking about 2019. Especially people, vulnerable populations, or anyone who's struggling. Even I think about 2019. I don't think about 2030. I don't think about 2040. I don't think about 2050. So in thinking through how we propose our work to the community, making sure it's relevant, and we're mindful of procrastination, which is why Boulder, one of our city members, did this. They promoted 4 actions that you can take that are simple. This was around energy efficiency, heating and cooling, solar, and driving electric. They created these stories, 1, 2, 3-minute stories, that showed how easy it was to take action, that you didn't have to procrastinate to 2030, 2040, 2050. It's very doable. Another one, social norming. This was already mentioned today, and thanks for some of the awards, because that helps social norm good behavior, positive behavior. This is Sydney in Australia. They've created a leadership board, and I heard that mentioned in the awards. They've created a leadership board to reflect back to the community the kind of behavior we want. And then they award them, like what we just saw, for the kind of behavior that we want. So they did a great job of social norming with these gold awards and silver awards. Same with Sydney, they're doing it with the greening of their buildings. Status quo bias. We are biased to the status quo. This is how I've always done it. I'm guilty of that, no question. So we stay in our lane, generally speaking. We rarely deviate from that. So how do we get people to deviate? Because we want them to change their behavior. Great example, oops. Here, Portland, one of our members, they're meeting people where they are. They're not assuming they're gonna step out of their lane and change their behavior significantly. They're assuming people are gonna stay with the status quo. So what they're doing, City of Portland, Oregon, they're saying, hey, do your thing, just save a little bit more, live a little bit more. Here are some simple actions you can take. They're assuming people aren't gonna take big actions, they're gonna take baby steps, and they're framing it accordingly. Availability heuristic, so basically this is, what is available to you to remember something? A lot of people say they don't see climate impacts happening. A lot of people say they do see climate impacts happening. Certainly in frontline communities, they're seeing it constantly. But some people who are more protected don't see it. They have no reference point. So how do we make sure that people have data points to refer to so that they have them available to them? In Denmark, one of our cities, Copenhagen, has created this site to show all the solutions. They have a really searchable map. All the cool stuff that's happening in the sustainability space, you can search it, so it's available to you, so you can be inspired by it, and they're reflecting back the movement so that the movement sees itself reflected here, which is really important. Last one, planning fallacy. We always underestimate, sometimes overestimate, but we usually underestimate the time it takes to do something. This is important, so if you're asking people to make a switch, and you're saying, oh, it's gonna be easy, it'll only take a couple days and you'll be done, you'll get it, but it actually takes 5 or 10 days, then they distrust you and they get frustrated. So we have to make sure when we're planning something out, we have realistic expectations. One example of this, London, one of our city members, offers different ways to get engaged so that with people and their planning fallacies, they can measure accordingly. Like, I only have a little bit of time. Okay, so that's what I can do with the City of London. I have a lot of time. Okay, this is what I can do with the City of London. So in thinking about offering up opportunities for the community and making sure we're meeting them, we're being realistic about the time it takes to get involved in these myriad ways. In the breakout session, I know I'm gonna be assigned to one of the groups. I just wanna flag very quickly before I'm done, some other stuff I've thought about, and I've worked with the City of Cleveland, and of course, all my cities globally on this, which is how do we campaign 24/7, 365 as if we're political candidates? And if you just Google 12 M's, the letter M, and my name, you'll find this article where I'm starting to think through how we get the right messages, the right messengers, how do we appeal to the mainstream majority, how do we use mass media effectively, How do we, as me, walk the talk so that what we're wearing and eating is a message too, and we're seizing that opportunity to message to the community? How do we mirror back the movement? How do we use a little magic when we're doing our work so that people are entertained too, because people need that as well? So if you just Google 12Ms, I'm not going to get into it today, you'll have some of that, and feel free to reach out to me at either michaelshank@nyu.edu or michaelshank@carboneutralcities.org. I'm happy to engage in conversation about how to build out a campaign, because I believe we need to be in campaign mode constantly to get this work done. I'm going to turn it over to David Cooper. Thank you for your time. I look forward to being in conversation with those of you this afternoon.